The little girl's voice barely carried over the hiss of buses and the echo of footsteps, but it landed like a weight in the Hell Angel's chest when she said, "Please act like you're my dad." Her fingers curled into the edge of his leather vest as if letting go would make her disappear, and he looked down to see eyes too alert for a child her age, eyes that had learned to measure danger the way adults measure time, and in the reflection of the terminal glass he saw the reason she'd chosen him, a man lingering a few yards back with a smile that didn't belong on a stranger's face, a smile that waited. The biker, known on the road as Graves, had been feared in a dozen towns, had broken bones and rules in equal measure, but something ancient and protective stirred in him as he knelt, bringing his scarred face level with hers, lowering his voice into a warmth that surprised them both, calling her kiddo, like it was a word he'd been saving for years, wrapping an arm around her small shoulders and pulling her close while he laughed softly and said, loud enough for anyone listening, "There you are, champ. I turn my back for 1 minute and you vanish." And the girl leaned into him with a breath that shook, trusting him with the most dangerous thing she owned, her fear, while Graves scanned the room, noting exits, security cameras, the bored cop by the coffee stand, the cluster of travelers who would pretend not to notice, and he felt the weight of his club's history on his back, the stories people told about men like him, and decided that if the world insisted on seeing monsters, then he would be a monster on the right side today. So he brushed her hair back gently and asked her name like it mattered, because it did, and she whispered, "Lila," and he repeated it like a promise, telling her they were just waiting for her mom, who was running late, nothing to worry about, while the man in the reflection shifted, took a step closer, then paused as Graves met his eyes in the glass with a look that carried miles of open road and nights where people learned when to turn around, and for a moment time stretched thin, the girl's heartbeat quick against his ribs, the engines outside rumbling like thunder waiting for permission to break. Part 2. What Graves did next wasn't the explosion everyone expected from a Hell Angel, it was precision, the kind learned from surviving long enough to know when noise helps and when silence cuts deeper, and he stood slowly, keeping Lila tucked against his side, took her hand and walked straight toward the men with the wrong smile, his boots heavy on the tile, his presence drawing a quiet line through the crowd as if space itself stepped aside, and when he stopped a few feet away he didn't raise his voice or his fists, he simply asked, "You need something," with a calm so complete it rattled, and the man's eyes flicked to the patches on Graves' vest, to the ink climbing his neck, to the other bikers who had drifted in from outside without announcement, forming a loose wall near the exits, men and women with weathered faces and watchful eyes who understood the signal without a word, and the men stammered about a misunderstanding, about looking for someone else, backing away as the bored cop finally noticed the shift in gravity and started over, and Graves held his ground, eyes never leaving the men until he turned and melted into the crowd. Then Graves exhaled and knelt again, bringing himself back down to Lila's level, telling her softly that she'd done exactly right, that asking for help was brave, not weak, and when she asked in a small voice if he was really her dad, just for now, he smiled and said, "For as long as you need," before pulling out his phone and making calls with a steadiness that came from years of handling chaos, alerting station security properly, requesting a supervisor, explaining just enough without dressing it in drama, because this wasn't about him being a hero, it was about making sure the next hour, the next day, were safer than the last. And when Lila's mother arrived breathless and shaking, clutching her daughter and sobbing thanks, Graves stepped back, nodding once, refusing praise, because some acts weren't meant to be polished into stories, mounting his bike as his club rolled out behind him, engines rising like a protective chant, leaving Lila watching the taillights fade with a new understanding etched quietly into her heart, that sometimes the person who looks the scariest is the one who knows exactly how to stand still, speak softly, and keep a child safe when it matters most.